Let's talk about framing effects, how a decision is presented. This is what, where people who are in areas of responsibility, especially in communications, can talk about what the impact is of an organization, of a decision, and how it should be approached, who is responsible, what elements are involved in it. Sometimes it can be presented in a risk-averse way, or it can be presented as risk-seeking, depending on the organization and its own temperature. People will be more or less inclined to make decisions when they are framed in certain ways. Escalation of commitment, if your decision is going to require the organization to do more than it typically does, or to provide more materials, more manpower, more financial commitment, those can be biases that we cannot necessarily accept when we're making individual decisions, and we have to think about them in a rational way. Let's talk about group decision making. There is an idea extant today that talks about the wisdom of crowds, that crowds are inherently smarter than individuals. I'm not convinced. Sometimes it's true. More often than not, individuals, when they are deeply schooled and steeped in information about a given process or decision basis, can be more valuable than a whole bunch of people who don't know as much. Advantages of group decision: pooled resources. A group of people who are schooled, who have studied, who are experts or quasi-experts in a field can bring valuable insight, valuable resources together in the underlying process of making a decision. And you can have specialization of labor and skills, which will bring about a more valuable, more likely to be successful decision. Some advantages of bringing groups of people together: they can be inefficient. There can be just too much talking, too much checking, too much waiting for input. There can be conflicts within the group based on job skills. Some people want to do things faster, some people want to do things more slowly, some people want to spend more money, some people don't. There can be just inherent conflict between groups. And there can be interpersonal disconnects. People who don't like each other should not be brought into decision making necessarily, because their personal antithesis can get in the way of good and efficient decision making. So we have to think about those elements when putting together a group that needs to make a decision. Communications issues within groups. We talk about interpersonal communication, how you and co-workers or colleagues communicate. Is the communication trustworthy? Do you follow his or her advice? Do you think she has valuable input? The interpersonal relationships can be incredibly valuable in teams and in small groups. Intra-organizational: who represents your organization to the rest of the organization? Some places I've been, the organization only wanted one person to talk for a whole group. So that made the communications critical that that person know everything that was going on, but it also made it very inefficient, because sometimes the person would ask a lot of questions on relatively minor processes or decisions that need to be made. Technical communication: if people are not on the same plane, whether they're talking about aesthetics or technical computer issues, they need to be schooled in each other's language so they can talk comfortably and intelligently together. Those are technical, not in the sense that they necessarily involve technology, but they involve highly evolved areas of expertise. let me summarize what we've talked about today. Groups are fundamental organizations within organizations for achieving goals. They are small, sometimes 3 to 20 people, usually smaller than that, who have focused goals and work best when everyone agrees on those goals, when they communicate comfortably, candidly, and honestly with each other. There's many different kinds of groups. You'll find a lot of different kinds, whether social, cultural, financial, whatever organizations you belong to. And what you need to do is apply some of the principles we've talked about today to making sure that the group understands what it's about, how it's going to get to where it's going, who has responsibility, or if everybody has equal responsibility. But make things clear in the beginning. Communication within groups take different forms, and sometimes the communications uses different networks or different styles, different processes. It's best to figure those out ahead of time and to test them and to make sure that everybody's comfortable with them. Sometimes it's incredibly valuable to do interpersonal, to make sure that everybody is working together. Relationships within groups are critical, whether the communications is electronic or in person. That's the summary of talking about groups and how decisions are made. It's important for each of us to go into a group setting and to say, what is this group about? What's my role in it? How can I help? Am I needed to be a leader, or am I needed to be a follower? And we can change roles over time, but it's critical for each of us to understand those things and to make sure that the group understands it. Sometimes we have to be a little forceful, a little assertive to make sure that the group works the best way possible. Let me remind you that the rest of this week's activities are outlined on Blackboard. You'll also find a video there to look at that is one of your assignments, and it's important to get the work done on time and to do it as effectively as possible. That will make our group work best. Thank you. See you next time.